tokenomics design framework. So we've done a few consulting projects, and we've worked with a few clients on designing their token. And we've basically read a lot about tokenomics, written about tokenomics. And so we thought something like this in this scale doesn't really exist. So lots of people might want to go and design their own tokenomics. And maybe they don't have the budget for premium consulting. Maybe they just want to try it on their own. So we thought we can give this to everybody who wants to try on their own. So this framework will take you through 7 steps that we think are necessary to design a token. There might be some more, and this is a living document, right? So we'll constantly publish updates to this as we move along. This is pretty much really our MVP number 1, right? So the minimum viable product. We'll build it out from here, but this is kind of our start with this, right? So we chose FigJam. Could have chosen Miro or other tools like that, but we think this is really, really cool to collaborate. So you can download this. I'll link it in the show notes. You can download this thing, and then you can clone your own copy. You can use FigJam with this for free. You can share it with your team members, and you can work on this collaboratively. So you can add comments. You can add notes. You can get really creative with all of this. And I think this is the perfect working mode for something like designing a token. And ideally you'd start from the top, right? 7 steps here you can go through. And if you need any help, you can of course come into our Discord, and that's completely free. You can join us, you can ask a question, and you might get some really good answers, so that you can definitely try that. But if you want some more special support or some more professional or dedicated support to your specific use case, we've got a few packages here in case you're interested. Anyway, so this is where we start. We start with business assessment. And the business assessment is to us is like really, really important, since a token is really only the thing that you build on top of something that works and should add value. And so we'll go through that. What's the problem you're solving? And so generally this document is structured in the different steps. See here, number 1, there's a little video where I walk through the details of this specific step. Then we've got an example for Uniswap, and then we've got here some space where you can get creative, like basically pulling out these post-its, typing something in it. You can share that with your teammates, and you can collaborate on it. And I highly recommend the comment function, so you can add a comment here. You can even link people that are working on this with you. So this is kind of really cool on what FigJam has to offer. And we're planning on getting more of these examples for different protocols, because Uniswap, we just thought it was good because everybody's familiar with it, but maybe not everybody knows Uniswap, or maybe Uniswap doesn't fit to what you're trying to build. So we're trying to get more of these, and we'll put them in future versions. So the questions we're going to look at in the business assessment is the problem statement. So we want to have you to look at what problem is your project solving, and how are you going to solve that problem, and write that down, right? For Uniswap, that could be we're going to swap. They're solving the problem of swapping tokens in a decentralized, non-custodial way. And then we want you to look into your value proposition, your value creation. So what do you sell? What is the value that they create that someone else is willing to pay for? And what's that competitive advantage? So really work on a few of these things. And for Uniswap, it's definitely the deep liquidity, connecting people who have liquidity with people who want liquidity. And so you go through that. The last step would be to think about growth. So we really want you to get thinking about how your project can or will grow and evolve. And really in this step, do not think about the token. Just try and go at this purely from a business perspective, right? Like, how will your project, not the token? Because this is important, right? Because you want your token to support these things, but your token is not the product. And that's pretty much the theme of the second step, which we call token evaluation. It's thinking about, well, yeah, you wouldn't be doing this whole design framework, tokenomics design framework, if you didn't have a token in mind, right? So this is a good place to start, to just think about how a token could potentially improve your product, and if you need one at all, right? We'll save you a lot of time if you stop here and think, oh, maybe I don't need a token yet. Maybe I'll go back to step number 1, business assessment, and try and get my business right, or get an idea of what I'm trying to build right before I launch a token. I think this would help a lot of people to get there. So yeah, there's some questions here that you can ask and you can go through, and we've also put in some examples for Uniswap again. Perhaps it is incentivizing ecosystem participants with something that is not as capital intensive as fiat, right? So they might want to print some tokens that they can give out to people to incentivize them to do something, as a form of like raising time or raising money and incentivizing others. So think about that, how a token could improve your product. And there's also an interesting question we borrowed from Maddie Stacks, who's designed the Tokenomics design canvas, which I highly recommend checking out. It's pretty cool as well. What will having a token enable the project to uniquely achieve compared to some other medium of exchange like USDC? So we often see that, right? Like people want to implement a token to trade, and the first question we ask, like, can we do this with a stablecoin? And if we can, then what are the things that you want additionally that you might need a token for? So go through a few of these things, and yeah, hopefully that will make you think about if you need a token at all. Number 3 is users. That's obviously the core of any product and also of the token, because with the token, we're essentially trying to incentivize certain behaviors within people that interact with our ecosystem. And so here, this is what we're going to think through. You can check out the video, I'll walk through the details of that. And for the user, we're going to go through a couple of different steps. And we've got this thing we call the circle model, where we try and map out from the user inside to outside who the users are, what they do, what tasks they fulfill in the ecosystem. Then we can look at empathy maps to go a little bit deeper. This is a bonus step, but yeah, we recommend doing it. Then we want to look at why they would use our product, why these different users would use our product, what their motivation is. And we can look at behavioral insights to go a step deeper. And then of course we want to know what value they create for a product, because that's something we might want to like amplify when they do that. So now here's really the step where this might take a bit longer, and here's the part where I guess it is also beneficial to team up with your teammate and get them all into this file asynchronously, maybe get on a call, whatever. But here's an example for Uniswap. And the way we like to use this is, this is just an example for one user of Uniswap is liquidity providers. Of course, there's also the traders or swappers on the other side, but we just wanted to stick with one here. So what are the tasks they perform? Well, they provide liquidity, they set the price range, they set the fees, and then why they use the product. So they maybe want to mitigate risk by being exposed to a pool of assets, so diversification maybe. They collect fees on idle capital. So here you can kind of see how we used in this example, this circle model as we call it, to flesh out more and more concrete ideas on what our ecosystem does, right? And we did that with color coding. The yellow one here is user research for value created. And yeah, in this circle, we want to figure that out. For more complex evaluations, this circle model will look a lot busier, right? So we'll have like a flow of thought going from here all the way down to the mechanisms that we want to implement. And then it might go up here with another one. It might go up here with another one. That's why I thought like a circle is a really cool way to display this. So here on the side, you might have to zoom out a little bit. We've got the where you can try this out. So this is just a template. You can copy it for all the users that we have. There's plenty of space. And then just go through all the users and fill that out. And So with this step number 3 for users, we only go to the yellow part of the circle, right? How users create value. In the next step, we want to think about incentives. That's what we call step number 4. And incentives is really what we want the users to do, what we want them to be doing in our ecosystem, in our project that we're designing. And the first thing is behaviors. Like, what do we want the users to do and what do we not want them to do? And the way you work on this is similar, right? So we have similar here. Potentially you pick up where you left this, or where you stop in the users part. You look at create an efficient market, provide deep liquidity on a variety of assets. This is the value they create. Now we can look at what we want them to do. Yeah, of course, we want them to really create deep liquidity, and we don't want them to churn to or leave to go to other AMMs for better fees. So this is something we might do, or might want them to do. Then we go to incentives, and incentives is something where, now that we know the behaviors, and we're taking you through this step by step just to get these, I guess, creative juices flowing in all of you, and make you figure out what it actually is that you want from your ecosystem, right? So this incentive design, how do we incentivize these desired behaviors? And this could be like anything, carrots and sticks, right? We want to reward early liquidity. We want to pay them a competitive fee. It doesn't all have to don't necessarily have to have the token in mind here. You can really think about anything that would go to incentivize these behaviors. Then we move on to mechanism design, which and mechanisms is like taking these perhaps a little bit abstract incentives and refining or defining them in a more concrete, implementable way. Right? It's almost like as if you could program this. Right? So getting into more details of how this thing could work. And so this is something, we want to reward this early liquidity. This is an incentive that we have here. We want to pay them for that in the Uniswap example. And then, so a mechanism could maybe be that and we're going to flesh that out later. It could be that we want to bootstrap the liquidity by paying early joiners that provide liquidity. Maybe we do that for a couple of months and see how that mechanism will work. So this is an idea for a mechanism that we could implement. And then we kind of, in a feedback loop here, we want to think about what the side effects would be of that, right? So here, in this case, I think this is what in the early stages of DeFi in general, where in this whole yield farming ecosystem, what went wrong is that too many of them were kind of bootstrapping, but then once the tokens ran out, everything collapsed because there was no real thing behind it. And I think what Uniswap did great was, or did rather well, was weaning off the people who use the platform quickly enough, right? So now you don't get paid any Uni tokens for using or providing liquidity on Uniswap. So they quickly got them off of that again. So maybe they've thought about these side effects. So that was perhaps a good thing. So again, think through that, and this can take some time. So you'll go through that for all of the users that you have and build out this thing. And this can go into all sorts of directions and create a lot of things. This is really about thinking through all of this still and getting creative, ideating. Next, the core mechanism summary. We want to now look at what the main mechanisms are that we have and how they work in detail. So this is like a little scorecard that we have. For Uniswap, we said, well, there's a liquidity provider. We want to provide some tokens. We call that a source. And then we want to only do that until we reach a critical mass of deep enough liquidity to have good slippage to attract users to come to our platform and swap tokens. So maybe describe that. There's a couple of questions, prompts that get you thinking of what this thing would do. So we can hopefully summarize a couple of mechanisms here. And then some might think this is optional. I think this is always really good to rethink what you've done, just to try and visualize it and also share it with others, is a mechanism, mapping out your mechanisms in something like a diagram. We've got some links here on existing ones that you can clone and check out. And here's one for Uniswap, right, which explains it sort of in a way. And then we go to step number 5, which is the token value accrual. So a lot of the user and the incentive part will be concerning the distribution, maybe, or we'll be more focused on the supply side in some cases. So here we want to try and tie this together, because we can't only give away tokens, we also have to have some things that maybe create demand for a token, and look into how the value that we create, that we defined in the very beginning, the value that our project, our business creates, how that then accrues to the token. So yeah, we think it's a good idea, and we don't want to get into any like modeling or simulation here. That's probably, we're still trying to figure out a way on how to get this across to people so that they can DIY it. We think CADCAT might be a cool solution here, but it's far from at a stage where everybody can just go and DIY CADCAT. You need to know how to program, and you need to know how to do an agent-based simulation or a Monte Carlo simulation, and that's just stuff that not everybody knows, and that's quite complicated to do. So we're kind of thinking through still, and might add something in this area in the future. So for the time being, we think it's pretty cool or pretty good to just take stock first. So look at this Uniswap example. We've now have, hopefully in users and incentives, we've designed a couple of mechanisms that create supply, that distribute tokens. And then we might have also created a bunch of mechanisms that remove tokens or make users hold tokens. There's a quite difference here, right? You could burn tokens like Ethereum's EIP 1559, or you could also have this like just temporary holding of tokens through a mechanism that does something like membership for people to join your platform. They have to hold a certain number of tokens. So that, of course, it wouldn't remove them from the platform, but it would to some degree make users, if you have a growing user base, it would make them hold them for some time. So again, there's a Uniswap example here, and you can come up with your own here. So use the cards that we have up here, maybe just summarize them again, and then pop them on here and think through what you have, which we call taking stock. Then once we've done that, we want to really now think about if this is balanced, because that's the whole point of the exercise. Of course, we're not going to quantify that, and that's something we're working on that we hopefully, I don't know if you're ever going to solve it, because quantifying it is really, really difficult, especially in complex systems. But to get closer to that point. But anyway, maybe we'll start really simple here. So we have our supply mechanism on the one side, we have our demand mechanisms on the other side, and now we can try and balance them. Think about how well we think this would be balanced out. Are there enough users coming in that would buy the new token because our product is really good? Or what else have we thought of that would happen here? And yeah, then we can think about other things that we might implement, right? So Ethereum has gone through a similar process where they had quite inflationary tokenomics, and they decided in, I don't know when they decided that, I think like in August or July last year. Is that long? They decided to implement EIP 1559, with which now tokens get burned off of every transaction that happens. And so that would be something that's more like an external demand driver, right? Because we're taking tokens out of circulation based on that. But there are also maybe like additional utilities for your token that you could implement that would do something with your token to balance the supply and demand here a little bit better. So yeah, add that to this thing, to this sheet, and try and get an idea for that. Then we get to step number 6, which really almost gets us to the end of our of our design framework. And this is the distribution. So first of all, we want to look at allocation. So we know our mechanisms, and the mechanisms will require some tokens that we have to allocate to certain pools. But now there might be additional people that you need to give tokens to. Maybe there's some investors that you have to give some to, team members, other parts of the community. Maybe you want to airdrop to a certain group to get them onboarded. So yeah, that's something. Uniswap has done that with their 1 billion tokens. And we have a calculation template here, which you can just click on and clone. It's on Google Sheets. And there's just this simple table here, right, where you can come up with the different holders that you think you need to have and their allocations. So you can come up with some number of tokens that you want, and then think through how you would allocate that. This is really this step, which is probably not too difficult. The next one then concerns the timing. All right, so if you think about supply and demand, we have our mechanisms that supply tokens. We have then also people that we allocate tokens to, like investors. And so this all adds tokens to circulation. And we have the demand side, which, maybe lock up some tokens or take them out or have people hold them because they see value in the token. What we now need to do is to map that onto time, because that's the most important thing. Is like, if you dump all your tokens onto the market day one, then you probably won't have enough demand for the token. If you bring it all onto too slowly, you might not be able to raise funds or to bootstrap your ecosystem in the way you want to. So timing is really, really important. And we hope that the supply-demand mapping or balance that you've done here will help in trying to figure out how to emit tokens in a way that is balanced. So again, you can use this calculation template. It's not perfect, but we have tried to give you some numbers crunching spreadsheet where you can map supply and demand against each other. So you know your supply, kind of how many tokens will come onto the market in what time, and you can sort of also estimate where demand for the token could come from. So it could be from investors or speculators. It could be from, maybe you have a token membership, maybe you have some other utility that you think would make people buy tokens. And so you can play around with that a little bit, and then you can try and balance against that how quickly you want to supply your tokens onto the market, or how quickly you have to, right? Your investors will definitely have an idea of how quickly or how long they want their tokens to be locked up. So think about all that and try and mess around with that in the spreadsheet to get a good understanding. Uniswap, again, there's an example. It's probably not so useful, but you get an idea, right? That they started in September 20, and they've got 4 years of vesting. So the 1 billion tokens that they have will have 4 years until they're completely in circulation. So there's some other sources here that you could look into. There's like one source that was really good that did like the optimal vesting schedule. So there's lots of cool stuff that you can look into here and find out more about how quickly or slowly you want to distribute your tokens. And then token launch, there's a whole bunch of additional questions that you'll have to solve. And for that, we have some resources, we have some questions that you go through. But at that point, it might be good talking to maybe your venture capitalists or some market makers to find out what liquidity you will need for your token when launching it. That's kind of based on market cap of your token. We're trying to get this section 6.3 a bit more fleshed out to help you more, maybe with a calculation template as well. So you can go through that calculation. But this is what you need to know here, right? Find out what your price of the token, what price of your token you want to have, what market cap you want to launch at. And for that market cap, how much liquidity you need. And for that, you can, for a lot of cases, just look into Uniswap, look at other comparative tokens that are at the market cap that you want your token to be at. Let's say you're targeting for 100 million then just go to Uniswap and look for other tokens that are trading around 100 million and find out what liquidity they have for their main token pairs. So that's a good point to start. Yeah, I guess this is how you could sort of approach that. And then step number 7, we think is a really important one, is documenting it all. Because there's so many tokens out there that trading at high valuations and they just have terrible documentation of what their token does. It doesn't help investors and it doesn't help other builders that are building tokens to learn from what you've done. And so I've got this template here. You can download it. And then if you've downloaded it or cloned it, then it will refer to sections of this tokenomics design framework, and you could look into the different sections and copy out the stuff that you have discovered and put it into this thing. And then you can use this light paper to share it with investors and upload it on your website and have it available for other builders so they can learn from what your project did. That's it. That's the tokenomics design framework. I hope you like this walkthrough. We'd love to get some feedback if you have any, if there's anything that's missing or not working or you'd like to see in future versions. Don't be shy. Reach out to us here and give us some feedback. And if you need any help, also go to our website. There's a contact form. You can reach out to us and we can see what is best to help you out. Thanks very much.